It is 6 o'clock and time for I call the September 5th, 2023 City Commission meeting to order. We'll begin with the roll call. City Clerk?
Mayor Hassel,
Here.
Commissioner Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Motta,
Here.
Commissioner Morse.
Present.
Mayor, we have 4 commissioners present. The quorum of 3 is met.
Very good. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will begin with, we got 2 proclamations. Gary, sit down. 2 proclamations to start with here. We will begin with the 9/11 Day of Remembrance. People, come on up to the stand here. Hello, hello. Throw me over here somewhere. Hello. I don't know either. All right, we'll see if I can do this without my glasses. All right. Nope, okay. Whereas 22 years ago, on September 11th, 2001, the American people endured the worst attack on U.S. soil in the nation's history with courage and heroism. And whereas in response to this tragedy, Americans across the country came together in a remarkable spirit of patriotism and unity, carrying out countless acts of kindness, generosity, and compassion. And whereas in 2002, family members of those killed and injured on 9/11 joined with first responders and others to create 9/11 Day to annually and forever encourage all Americans to remember and pay tribute on the anniversary of September 11, 2001 attacks through acts of service, including volunteerism, and to keep Americans' promise to never forget. And whereas on the 22nd anniversary of the September 11th attacks, it is fitting to pay tribute to the strength and resilience of the American people through service to our nation and our communities. And whereas through serving on this National Day of Service and Remembrance, we honor those killed and injured, pay tribute to those who responded in service and compassion, and honor those who continue to serve our country, including active duty and reserve soldiers and their families, veterans, and first responders. And whereas on September 10th, the Flint Hills Volunteer Center will bring together our community to place a flag in remembrance of the 2,977 lives lost on September 11th, 2001. And whereas on September 10th, 2023, and the days preceding and following this day, community members in Manhattan have the opportunity to honor the fallen and commemorate the continued resilience of the American people through service. Now, therefore, I, Mark Hattasall, the mayor of the city of Manhattan, Kansas, on behalf of the citizens of Manhattan, do hereby proclaim September 10th, 2023 as 9/11 Day of Remembrance in the city of Manhattan, and encourage all citizens to honor the lives of those lost and those who continue to serve through participation in today's activities and ceremonies and on this day of remembrance. Here you go. I'll give it to you. Shake your hand. Who goes first?
They always volunteer me. On behalf of the Flint Hills Volunteer Center and AmeriCorps and all of the board members, we are honored to have received this proclamation, and we encourage the entire public to come out and spend Sunday afternoon and evening with us so that we can commemorate this festivities of this occasion. Being a first responder, this is far more dear to my heart. So all of those are encouraged to come out and spend the evening with us.
You want to talk about what the festivities include?
We're going to start at about 3 o'clock. From 3 to 5, it's going to be like a family time where we're going to have the painted rocks, and the kids get a kick out of that. But also this year, we're going to also install 2,970 flags to represent each member who died that day with the location, the building, and their name. Then later on that evening, Raleigh County will prepare dinner for everyone, and we're going to be in the pavilion out of the heat. We're going to have dinner, we're going to have guest speakers, and we have a pretty distinguished list. So it's a full evening of activities, and we're going to have a lot of political leaders there from the community and the state, and it's just a good evening to come out with the family and just have a nice, quiet evening. And we have it on the 10th because Monday is the 11th, and we kind of figured school day and all of that. Let's have it the day before so everyone can really come out and enjoy the festivities.
Very good. All right, thank you. All right. Next up is the Constitution Week proclamation. Hello, hello, if you want to hang out right here. All right. Whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th to the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Mark Hattasall, the Mayor of the City of Manhattan, do hereby proclaim September 17th to the 23rd of 2023 as Constitution Week in Manhattan, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787, and urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American, with all the rights and responsibilities with which that privilege involves. Here you go.
Good evening. Thank you so much. We're very honored to have this proclamation for Constitution Week. We have over 500 constitutions going out to grade schoolers around Riley County schools, clear up to Blue Valley, into Manhattan USD 383 as well. And then we'll be doing presentations in classrooms about the Constitution to those youngsters to keep them the Constitution alive, and we know why we're here and free in the United States. So we are very happy to do that on behalf of the Poly Ogden DAR chapter here in Manhattan, Kansas.
Good. Thank you. All right, so now we will continue with public comment for items that are not on the agenda for this evening. As a general practice, the Commission will not discuss or debate these items or make decisions on these items presented during this time. They should address all comments and questions to the Commissioner. Each person will be limited to one speaking opportunity for up to 5 minutes. Items not on the agenda, not budget related. If you want to complain about potholes or the airport not being ready, things like that, now's your chance. So, anybody care? Oh, Gary? Not budget, remember.
I think I just wrote down miscellaneous.
You did.
MISC. Good evening. My name is Gary Oles. I live at 3308 Frontier Circle. Here's what I want to bring to your attention this evening. Last year I said in this meeting, the R&R budget meeting last year, and unfortunately, due to the logistics of the agenda, I had to get over to Junction City because my fair share in Junction City is substantially more than my fair share in Manhattan. So I'm here this evening to remind you of Senate Bill 13. It is not my desire to be a killjoy, okay? I want to make that clear. And I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on television. But Senate Bill 13 clearly states that the notice shall include, but not limited to, its purpose, tax rate, revenue neutral rate, and date, time, and location of the public hearing. The statement I got, and everybody else got, states that the public hearing is at 6 o'clock. Riley County's was at 9:20. I was there at 9:20 and spoke. If it's published here that says 6 o'clock, the revenue neutral hearing and budget hearing should be top of the agenda, not at the end of the agenda or toward the end. Keep that in mind. I have no expectation of that changing today, but keep that in mind in 2025. Seek counsel on that because USD 383 states theirs at 620. So I'm making the assumption when I'm there tomorrow at 6:20, they'll be talking about R&R and budget. This commission for 2 years has not complied with what this says by publishing a time and then going another, hour and a half before you get to that point. One of the speakers here this evening was asked to sign up thinking that he was going to speak and really doesn't have an interest in sitting here for an hour and a half until you all get around to the R&R. So please keep that in mind for 2025. Either change this publication that says you're going to talk about it at 7 or 6:20 or 40 or whatever it is. It shouldn't say 6 o'clock if I'm reading and you're reading Senate Bill 13 correctly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Any other comments about items that are not on the agenda for this evening? All right, we'll close the first meeting of the month, public comments, and move on to commissioner comments.
I do. Linda Morse. I attended a program, a workshop put on by the, last week, put on by the Riley County Health Department on suicide. And I'd never attended one before necessarily, and I was impressed with the sense of urgency that the number of suicides continues to rise, and that we need to be better able to recognize the signs of someone who's depressed and or in trouble. And September is National Suicide Prevention Week, so it's estimated that there are 50,000 suicides a year, and they're not always that easy to detect either. If they go off the end of the bridge or something, is that an accident? Is that a suicide? How do you interpret? So the estimate is 50,000. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. The other thing is that, several other probably, this last week was the 5th year anniversary of the Wildcat Creek flood. And we know how that surprised the community. The water in Wildcat Creek, there was 11 inches of rain received all along the creek from the North Riley County boundary, and it just inundated Manhattan. And especially the area south of the Car Museum and the Garden Way apartments, and what was the other one was the the bridge. Heavens, how did I forget that? And so it was major, and so I asked Brian Johnson, the city engineer, for information about what has the city of Manhattan done since that flood event, because it was major. We had people out of their homes and out of those senior living apartments for literally months it took to ever recover from that. And he said we continue to purchase and relocate structures that have been damaged from flooding in the Wildcat Creek watershed. And as you know, the National Church Residences is leaving this community. They're abandoning their building there on Garden Way. There were other apartments there that we have since bought, as a city, we've bought out. And so we're making progress. Sometimes it seems really slow. These relocations have been paid for through a grant from the state of Kansas at a 90%, 10%. We pay 10% rate. In addition, we've completed the Wildcat Creek water retention study with participation from Riley County and Fort Riley. The city continues to require new developments in the watershed to not increase their runoff through detention. The city continues to partner with federal partners for flood gauges along Wildcat Creek to give authorities as early a warning as possible. And you know that was here within, I think, 5 hours. And it was overnight, and who knew it was coming kind of thing. So it just suddenly arrived. So I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. We are making progress. It is just slow. You know that we have this levee project under construction also, and that is a major budget item for the city and a major effort for the, my time up. I just want to compliment the Parks and Rec Department too for the great aquatic season. At least my perception and the public's perception is that we had a great season this year. We don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it was wonderful to hear these squealing kids at Northview Pool and City Park. And during these hot days, I'm always sorry when it has to close. I also want to compliment the DMI about the how beautiful downtown looks with the flowers and the plants that are decorating it. I think between the city, I don't know how much of who to thank, but DMI certainly, and the city for facilitating, and everyone who plays a part. Our downtown just looks gorgeous with the pink hanging baskets and the yellow cannas, and just looks wonderful. And I think it's worth bragging about, and we need to celebrate when we have a jewel like that. And certainly people who come here are very complimentary. So thanks, that's plenty.
All right, John, Wynn?
I didn't, but maybe just to add on to Commissioner Morris's comment, that I don't think you mentioned this one, but on our consent agenda, we are purchasing a home that's in the floodplain with that 90-10. So yes, we are continuing to make progress.
Okay. All right, I don't have anything either, so we'll move on to the consent agenda, which are items of a routine and housekeeping nature, or we have previously considered. A commissioner may request an item be removed for discussion separately after the passing of the consent agenda. Each person, if comment from the public related to any item on the consent agenda is allowed, will have 5 minutes and 1 chance to speak. Anybody want to comment on anything on the consent agenda? We're spending a lot of money. All right, we will close the public comment for the consent agenda. And commissioners, is there a motion?
Mayor, I would move, I need to just make a statement that I plan to oppose or vote no on the second reading of item 7E1, which is the Greenbrier PUD, to allow it to become a non-owner occupied short-term rental. And I just want to restate that I object to the way that the city is just dotting the city with short-term rentals. I think we need a policy about them. And sure, we have one with like 4 provisions, but it isn't the kind of short-term rental policy that we need to have here. We're going to be there's not going to be a need for hotels before long. We're going to be using everybody's rental for as a short-term rental. So, and every month there's a new project here, and they're not just a little old house in the old neighborhood. These are now apartment complexes. So, I just wanted to say with that.
Okay.
Well, somebody else probably ought to make the motion since I'm voting against that one.
I move that we approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
There we go. Any other comment? If not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Morse,
I vote yes on the consent agenda with the exception of 7E1, which is the Greenbrier PUD to allow short-term rental use.
Mayor Hassel.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0 with the exception of E1, which carries 3-1.
All right, we will move on to the public hearing, which is for the revenue neutral rate to start with. Jason Hilgers.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Going to move through these slides rather quickly. This is either our 6th or 7th work session on the budget. A lot of this information you all have seen before multiple times. Definitely want to get to the opportunity where the public can give you their feedback. We had a 9.5% growth take place within the City of Manhattan's tax base. This includes both Riley County and Pottawatomie County portions of the city. That 9.5% growth we've reduced down to roughly 6% from a budgeting perspective. And we highlight this 4% and 2% throughout this presentation. We could have realized almost $3.2 million in total growth had our mill levy stayed the same. Direction was given from the commission to reduce that mill levy by 1.684 compared to where we established a mill levy in 2023. That proposed property tax increase still generates $1.9 million, of which 1.3 will go towards outside city services such as Riley County Police Department and the library. Right now at just over 50 mils, $655,000 worth of new revenue would be going towards city services. This is a matrix, and you've seen several times describing the levies. If you look over here on the right-hand side, the 2023 mill levies are all listed here. 52.154 is where we landed last year for a mill levy. Each of the benefiting or receiving parties of those mill levies are listed over here on the left-hand side. We show then where we're projected to be for 2024, and that's a total of 50.47. Again, a reduction of 1.684 mils. The increase is the difference between where we were in 23 and where we are forecasted to be levied here in 24. RCPD, their levy of 18.7 million will jump to 19.8. The library is a combination of their employee benefit fund and the library fund. You can see the increase there. But outside agencies went from 22.1 to 23.4 million in property tax increase, just over 1.3 million. City taxes and our services are really combined in our general fund, our employee benefit fund, and primarily bond and interest. We do have some mill levy supporting fire equipment reserve and KP&F. Those have grown from the 10.9 million to the $11.5 million figure. And again, that's reflective all across the board here in terms of mill levies being adjusted and the total revenue anticipated from property tax to support operations, not only within the city, but the library and the police department. Taxes levied, anticipate that growth again at $1.98 million. This is a little bit of a 5-year history here of the mill levy, and its revenue neutral rate really just didn't kick in until 2022. We had a prior year increase or decrease that we highlighted for you all, and then a total property taxes that are being generated, and highlighting once again the increase to outside city services and city services for 2024 budget. So we have 16.69 mills dedicated to city services. One mill is just under $700,000. Total property taxes for the city for our ops and debt is about $11.5 million. We are roughly 12% of the tax bill that people receive for city services. The other 88%, USD 383, Riley County, RCPD, and the library. Just breaking down a $200,000 reference residence on the 9.5 point valuation increase, you can see there's a total of $332 if all mill levies stayed the same for that property. With our reduction in the mill levy, that has gone from $332 to $230. So there's a $102 difference. The county recently has shown a reduction. Is that in here, Rebecca? Is it part of the calculation? On the county taxes, the 35, they've recently taken, I believe, a 2 mil decrease. Did you have that factored in there?
Whatever was on their website at the time last week.
Okay,
It should have been.
by Thursday of last week, I believe it was. We can do some calculation. This is also the same calculation for a $500,000 business within the city on the Riley County side of things. Again, just summarizing the budget, growing from 188.9 million to 226.2. Each of the funds that we've highlighted in the past, our special revenue funds, are a lot of cash balances that we have, and the balances that support like RCPD. Bond and interest fund, a lot of that increase, we'll show in a future slide, is about cash balances increasing, which are good things for your fund balances. It gives the cushion necessary to operate and move through those funds on an annual basis. Enterprise, you got a thorough update from Rob and Randy and Brian on all the utilities, and then our internal service funds and where they're at. This brings to light some of the budgeting differences between 23 and 24. Again, same categories that we talked about. Wanted to show you the side-by-side, the totals of 188 to 226, and just how much of this is due to the increase in the cash balance. So $37 million overall increase, 21 of that is due to cash balances in which we are obligated to budget. The state of Kansas requires a balanced budget from the city. It's one in which the expenses have to equal the revenues. And then there are obviously different challenges we face that are non-cash balance. And that's where your change is reflected equally. Outside agency requests, just another summary for you all. You had a lot of input and feedback from your outside agencies throughout the process. In June, we had a work session dedicated solely to those groups. They obviously approached you all. We're just highlighting here where some history is and where the request is. We have moved the ATA out of the Economic Development Fund, and we believe we can target this out of the general fund into a project account more than likely, where we can pay out of and anticipate receiving those revenues back towards projects that they would participate throughout the community, that the city would initiate. We're still working on an agreement with them to bring back for you all at the end of the year, but that's the intent here, is to track and offset some of the revenues they will bring back to the city. Everything else is fairly consistent with what we've done in the past, and again, those increases from 23 to 24 budget highlighted there at the bottom right-hand side. CIP, we gave you a summary early in the process, touched on it again a few weeks ago. Obviously looking at a pretty substantial investment in our infrastructure in the community, water, wastewater, storm, a big share of that, special revenue funds, along with bond and interest, paying for our outstanding debt on an annual basis. Again, a 9.5% increase to the tax base. We targeted 6%. Very much appreciate the recognition and the cost of doing business in the city throughout all our departments is taking on the inflationary side of the world. 6% is the end of year 2022 Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI growth for the entire year. We look to that to look at how we're going to approach our people and how we're going to approach our operations. We have appreciated the Commission's commitment to that up to now. Realizing those increases is going to help us address services and keep those at a status quo. We highlighted our cost of living adjustment at 4%, and then our annual increases based on the step plan that was adopted last year of 2.5% to 4%. That depends on where you're at in your the midpoint of your pay range. If you're above it, a halfway point, we will do the lower percentage, 2.5%. If you are below that midpoint, we're looking at a 4% increase at your annual evaluation. Just a reminder that strategy is in place to try to get people we are hiring in years 1 through 7 at that midpoint quicker so we can retain those employees. Once you hit the midpoint, we're going to slow you down a little bit, Obviously, you've been here 7 to 10 years. You're pretty committed to the organization. We still want to reward you, but we're not in the mode of trying to keep you at a pace that we are our new people. We'll continue to watch our revenue streams. That is a big part of what we do. We monitor sales tax. And I reminded you last time, and I'll remind you again this time, even though our budget in the general fund is $45 million, $4 million of that comes from property taxes. That means $41 million of operating costs are coming from other revenue streams. It still shocks people when I engage with them in the public about our budget and our revenues when they say, I live out the city or I live in the city. Those who live outside the city are constantly reminding me they don't have to pay city taxes. And I was like, yes, you do, because you buy your groceries here and you do all your shopping. And they look at me like, well, no, you run on property taxes. No, we really don't. We really run on other revenue streams, primarily sales tax. We're at $224 million. That's the amount our budget was published. We can't go any higher than that. This evening, you can give us direction to go lower than that. September 19th is the second reading of the ordinance, and we will also bring back a number of other items to take action on that deal with budgets and the fees and revenues that we anticipate. We would certify the budget back to the county clerks on October 1st. Tonight, you have to conduct a public hearing on the revenue neutral rate. Once that's complete, you'll close that hearing. You'll also conduct a hearing on the proposed budget and close that hearing. Those two this year are essentially the same thing when it comes to a mill levy. Last year, it was not. This year, it is. 50.47 mills is what we published for the revenue neutral rate. It's also what we published with the 2024 budget. Again, if you desire different direction, please provide that to us for second consideration of the budget. Questions or feedback for staff at this time?
Not so much on the revenue neutral rate, but just the way you kind of phrased it. That's the mill levy we have published and give us direction for the next time. What if we want to change the number at this meeting?
Yeah, you can give us direction. Second reading's when it actually is adopted.
True, but still, don't we have to vote on it to have, well, you can do anything on one vote and another thing on the second
Sure.
vote.
Yeah, if you're going to make a motion to some degree and get support from the majority, the next time we're in front of you, we'll reflect that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions for Jason on the revenue neutral rate presentation? All right, thank you.
Actually, I do have one because I got another question earlier today, and so I think it just needs clarification again. On the revenue neutral rate, it's just purely the dollars we spent last year compared to the dollars this year. So any new construction that we had, even though if all we did was to charge extra property tax to, equal that number, that still wouldn't meet the revenue neutral rate. It's captured in the appraisal, but not captured in the dollars for the revenue neutral rate.
Yeah, if you had a vacant lot next to you and somebody put a house on it last year, that new valuation at the same mill levy would cause the revenue neutral rate to be surpassed. You would have to have other values decrease to keep that valuation the same. If everything's a net gain, then yeah, you've gone beyond the revenue neutral rate.
I know we've talked about that before, but the question just keeps coming up.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Describe the communities that are not having to raise their revenue neutral rate. Are economics bad in their communities and the property values going down and they're losing population? What is the general scenario for those communities?
Well, I'll repeat what I think I heard, and you tell me if I'm on the right path. If communities are not having to change their mill levy and they are revenue neutral, describe that set of circumstances?
Or less.
Sure. It means the valuation of their community within the boundaries of their city is at or below where it was the year before.
Is declining.
Yeah. And again, kind of look at it from your own home and your own property. If it stayed the exact same value as last year, and you're that value this year, the revenue neutral rate would not be surpassed if the mill levy stayed the same. You have two competing factors. One's the value of your home, the other is the mill levy. If your valuation goes down, it typically requires the governing bodies to raise the mill levy to an equal amount to generate the same amount of money. So if you have a $250,000 home and it went down to $240,000, the mill levy can be tweaked up to gain the same amount of revenue and taxes from a $240,000 home as it was $250,000. But the mill levy would have to increase in that example. On the flip side, it's why the revenue neutral rate exists. If it goes from $240,000 to $250,000 and the mill levy stayed the same, it's going to generate more revenue. And in order to generate the same amount, the mill levy would have to be reduced.
All righty, any other questions for Jason right now?
These steps are your next steps right now.
Yep,
I'll go through them. You will need to open it for the revenue neutral rate.
I got the directions.
You ready?
I got them.
I'll get
Here we go. All right. I will now open the public hearing on the revenue neutral rate discussion. We will have the budget discussion here in 10, 15 minutes, hopefully. Members of the public that signed up in person will have a chance to go first, then other members of the public in the audience may stand and be recognized to come forward. If you haven't already signed up to speak, be sure that you sign in on the list at the podium. Please state your name and residential address and/or organization you're representing for the record, and for those listening or watching at home. Each speaker will have up to 5 minutes, can speak only once, and must stop speaking when the timer sounds. Neither the commission nor the city staff will answer questions while you're speaking, but we may take them up for debate and discussion when you're finished. Mark, you want to talk on this one or the next one? Revenue neutral or budget? Revenue neutral. Okay, come on, since you signed up first.
Good as
Finally walking, just limping. My name is Mark Wilson. I live at 1012 North Mill Point here in Manhattan, and have lived here since 1989. And I seem to be coming to more commission meetings than I used to, because I am becoming older and I'm becoming more interested in really what this whole process is all about. My number one question that I wanted to answer was, John mentioned that a lot of these people are asking about the revenue neutral. And I remember my first time I came here this year about this, and when we talked about that, Ron said that if we did revenue neutral, it means as soon as somebody built a house or whatever, you couldn't tax it. And I didn't understand that at all. But after listening to Jason and his talking about it too, he didn't quite clear it up for me. Although I may not be the brightest tool or light in the house, but I am still fairly smart and educated. But I do know. I am I'm a real estate appraiser in Manhattan and many counties in Riley and Wabunsee to Dickinson County. So I do know that there are places that everybody's got the taxes increased. I have talked to many different people, and I really appreciate all of you on the city commission, because I feel like you've been the most transparent in explaining and telling us what's going on. I did get a question today really quick. I'm going to run out of time, I know, here pretty soon. But so we are still involved in financing the police department, although they have their own mill levy. Is that not correct?
Essentially.
Okay, well,
It's
why?
part of the city's, but yes.
Part of the city's budget, but then they have their own as well. So I didn't understand that part. That was one of my questions. Another question is, we have a huge water tower out in our neighborhood, and there's probably 40 to 5 different cell communication configurations on top of that tower, or around it. Who gets the money for that? And how much money is that? And how does that play? Does that just go to the general fund of the city of Manhattan, or the county, or what does that do? And how many of those do we have? And why do our taxes continue to go up and up and up? And I will ask the other question, and I have more, but why haven't we been more vocal to the state of Kansas? Because I've lived here since '89, and I've seen a lot of tax increases. I've bought more expensive homes. I have a more expensive, probably, home I wanted to stay in the rest of my life. But now I'm beginning to wonder whether I'm going to be able to, because my taxes are over $9,000. And there are not, and I wish somebody would say to the Manhattan Mercury that there is not one $100,000 house in Manhattan. If you have one, it's probably has drywall is removed, the framing is exposed, and the roof is fallen on. That's what it is. But we do not have any $100,000 houses. We have a lot of $200,000 to $300,000 houses, and we have a lot less 400 and up houses because people buy on their budget, on what they can spend. And when taxes go up $500 a year and insurance rates go up double what they used to be, they're going to buy a lower priced house. So I guarantee you, if we don't go revenue neutral, we will be there regardless, because the value of the homes in the city of Manhattan are going down. They may not be going down right now, but we have builders and they build. And if they find affordable housing and affordable lots, they will build there. And if we continue to go in the situation we're going, we're going to be wondering, where are the cities? The restaurants are all closing. I haven't seen a new city development come in that has been promised. We got no Brahms. We didn't get the big development out in Wabunsee County, or in Pot County. Sorry.
All right.
But we're losing people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else care to comment on the revenue neutral rate discussion?
I'm not signed up, but I want,
They'll come up and sign up, and then you can start talking. We won't start the clock until you've signed in.
I gotta sign my name.
Yep, and tell us who you are and where you live.
I am Barta Stevenson. I live at 3201 Willowwood Circle, and in a 20-year-old home. I've been in this city for over 40 years. My husband and I decided to stay here because we thought we could afford it. Now, on revenue neutral, there's several things I don't like about it. One of them is you raise the budget past revenue neutral, that becomes the revenue neutral for next year. So there's no way we can bring you back. I don't want the value of my home to go up until I sell it. I don't care if it's undervalued or not. That doesn't affect anything that affects me. It's just when I sell it. And property values, people aren't buying homes. They're not buying them in my neighborhood. I live behind Susan B. Anthony Middle School, the old turkey farm, so you know where it is. We all have choices to make. I have talked to family and friends that live throughout the country. I pay over $6,000 in taxes now, and it's going up at least $500. Nobody pays as much money as I do. And a lot of them get other city services. They get their garbage picked up. They get recycling as part of their water bills. We don't get those services, so I know there's a trade-off. I know you guys have a hard job, but I would like you to consider explaining to me why your budget's going up when I'm on a fixed income and mine's not. So a lot of the choices I make, instead of buying the brand name in the grocery store that I'm used to, I buy the store brand. Or doing some things like that we can do to take the edge off of some of this. And I know you feel my pain, but think about it, because we can vote with our feet. If you're retired, it's really easy for us for you to force us to move outside the city. Even though we've loved our time here, we want to stay and get old. But you know, we're having some of these discussions right now in our home. How much, because if it goes up $500 this year, are you going to go up $500 next year? What's the escalation going to be if you go over your revenue neutral budget in the future? Thank you. And I guess I got to finish writing my stuff up here, right?
Yep.
And, okay, thank you.
All right, any other revenue neutral rate commenters at this time? All right, we'll close the public hearing on the revenue neutral rate. And commissioners, you have any other questions or want some clarifications from city staff or anything? All right, in that case, is there a motion on the public, on the revenue neutral rate resolution?
I guess all we're doing is just passing a motion to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
Yeah, officially. Yep.
Okay, and I still think, based on the discussion, I'm not sure anybody fully understands it. I think the whole concept's sort of crazy personally, because I crunched a bunch of numbers on it, and in order, the appraiser, I used my house as an example because you have to have real numbers. And they raised mine up $48,000, which I think is ridiculous in 1 year. And we'd have to go below the revenue neutral rate to keep my taxes flat on the appraisal they gave on my house. Now, the other thing that I looked at was I own an acre next to it that I bought many years ago because I didn't want another house there. So it's just flat land. It stayed level. So the 50 mils that we put, which is above the revenue neutral rate, lowered the taxes on that 1 acre by 3%. So the averages that the newspaper's publishing and all really are meaningless, and the revenue neutral rate is meaningless. You have to calculate the numbers on your own property to see what it will do. And that's the thing that frustrates me about the revenue neutral rate thing. Because remember, an average, if you take the fictitious $100,000 house average and say, okay, we're going to use that as a template, well, that means half the people are going to pay more and half are going to pay less. So you know, what you see on these numbers, I think it confuses people. And I'm hoping we can get a city website where you can go in there and type in your actual information and see it come forth. And then the other frustration I have is I think people look at their total tax bill. I think Jason did a pretty good job of spelling out where our portion of it is. And you have to understand, the state of Kansas takes a piece of it, the USD does, the county does, and the city does. And everybody seems to think the city does all of it, and that's just really not the case. And that's sort of where my frustration is on that. But we have to exceed the revenue neutral rate simply because it can't stay flat, because it doesn't count for inflation, and it doesn't count for the fact that if a new house is built, or Scorpion finishes their property and we need a new fire station, how are you going to fund that? So the whole concept that you can stay revenue neutral and spend the same amount of money, each year and never increase just isn't viable. It can't be done.
I just add in, we had the presentation there and it said that we targeted that 6% increase, which of course was a mill levy decrease, but not at the revenue neutral rate. And that's all the extra income we're going to get. Now, that presentation showed a business and residential each going up about that 9.5%. Although we did find out from the county, and I did verify with the county, that the residential is going up 13%. I didn't get the commercial number, but obviously the commercial number is not going up anywhere near what the residential is because it's averaging out at the 9.5%. So our goal was to not increase taxes more than 6%, but for our residential customers, it's still going, up close to double digits with our current number. I think in what we're gonna talk about next is the budget. I wanna push to get that residential down closer to a 6%, but that won't take us to the revenue neutral, as Wynn said. You know, that would take us way down. So again, I agree with Wynn. I don't see we can go to the revenue neutral, but I think we can definitely take the mill levy down lower.
I think that it's, we really have to approve the revenue neutral rate because of the valuation increases in our community. And because cost of a house, cost of the properties are going up and the values are going up, and that is what triggers the property tax rate. So I think that we have to do that.
So Mark, to answer your question on, so the law board determines a budget for the RCPD, and they take that bill, whatever it is, and they give 80% of it is the city's responsibility, 20% of it is the county's responsibility. And so when we talk about the property tax, we try to explain that the RCPD amount plus the library board amount, which are both governed and decided by the RCPD, or the law board and the library board, they basically hand us a bill and say, this is what you owe. And the city commission can't really change those amounts. They give us a bill, we gotta pay it. For the police department, that's an extra $1.2 million this year, or something like that. So we talk, when Jason talks about, there's the amount for outside city services, think library, police department. That is 2/3 of the property tax that the city levies. That other third goes to city services like paying for bond and interest and various other things around the city. So we always talk about the part that the city can control is less than 1/3 of what all of the property taxes that the city has to charge. Less than 1/3 of it are things that we can control and make smaller based on the fact that we have to pay the RCPD budget that's presented to us. We have to pay the library budget that's presented to us. And then the only thing we can make lower is that less than 1/3 for city services that we can decrease. So RCPD doesn't have their own levying thing. They decide an amount and then give the bill to the city and the county, and then we have to pay it. And so we can't pay them any less. And even if we don't collect enough property tax, we got to come up with that amount of money from somewhere else anyway. So that's why we keep talking about the part we can control, the part we can't control. We can only control about 7 mills out of the city's part there, so.
And that's correct on that, though the law board, does have, 4 commissioners between the county and the city. And then the county attorney is elected, so there's 5 elected individuals there and 3 are appointed citizens that make the decision. And of course, this year, the presentation at the law board, they wanted to raise it, way up over 8%. We ended up getting it down to 6.5. But as Jason would say, the problem is, okay, now the law board says, okay, they want a 6.5% increase. We limited the city to 6. So what happened to the other 5%? Well, the city's got to eat that, basically. That comes out of there. So, they're doing pretty good to lower, the rates where they are. But I've always been frustrated with the whole law board structure, because if you live in the city, as I've said many times, you're not paying 80%, you're paying 100% because you get a county tax too. So, it doesn't really make any difference. The guys at the county think, oh, we're only paying 20%. Well, you're paying 100% in the city for every bit of it. So it's unfortunate. It just shows up on 2 different line items on your tax bill.
You'll have to wait till the next comment period, which will be in about 30 seconds or so here. I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that we approve resolution number 090523B, levying a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate.
A second.
Any other comment right now? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Morse,
Yes,
Mayor Hassel,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, we will move on to the next thing, which is there going to be a separate presentation for the budget? Okay, we will move right into the public hearing for the budget. Same rules apply. You got 5 minutes, and then you'll have to stop, and we'll take your comments under consideration and answer questions when you're finished. Anybody else besides Mark want to come up and finish asking your other question?
Do I need to sign in again?
Nope, no, we got you signed in from before.
I just have a quick question. I don't know if everybody understands, I know you guys all understand, but if we do revenue neutral, when an appraisal is made on a house through the county, they go back 3 years on values. So it's kind of a hard number to get a hold of when they can go back 3 years on your house and see what's going on in that neighborhood. So it's either going to be higher or lower. Nobody knows. I mean, we don't have crystal balls, but I do want everybody to know that revenue neutral is only for one year, correct?
Yep.
So there are other states in this country, and I've spoken to people from other states. Wisconsin is appraised every 10 years. Other states are 3 years, some are 5 years. For some reason, Kansas is every year. We tax our cars every year. Some states tax them when you buy them and you never get taxed on them again. We are the highest tax state almost in the union. And this is why people are not wanting to move to Kansas. They may have to because of all the storms, but I mean, I'm glad. But anyway, that's all I had to say about it's not just a one-time thing. We'll be back at this again next year.
Yep.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim, you're up. State your name and where you live or who you're representing.
Jim Jeanette, live at 3801 Cates Court, and I'm president of Manhattan Tech. And I'm assuming from Jason's presentation that our request for support is not going to happen. And first of all, I wouldn't trade places with any of you. And
I think we needed clarification, Jared,
Yeah.
Jason.
maybe I'm out
Yeah,
of,
'cause
Stop the clock.
okay.
Don't assume anything here.
That's not what I got at.
I didn't see us at all. Could be my bad eyes.
We probably, did we just leave them off? Should be under, you should be under the economic development.
Well, then I'd say thank you.
My bad.
It was not our intention.
That's,
Just wanted to test your heart there.
that wasn't a property tax item anyway, it was economic development.
So I'll give you two quick updates.
Heart attack.
Since the last time I gave you an update, we've got pledges or donations of almost another million. We keep chipping away.
Right.
But I don't know if you saw something, kind of escapes every year. Wallet Hub, a financial services company in the nation, does its best and worst of two-year colleges ranking. And we've been #1 in Kansas on the best side for the last 4 years in a row. Last year on the nation, we were #4. This year, Manhattan Tech is #2. And I want to thank publicly all of our people for what they do, but I'll recraft what I was going to say thank you because we produce outcomes that produce revenue. And that's my big battle with a lot of education. Most of the things we're supposed to do aren't aimed at outcomes. We do outcomes at Manhattan Tech. So, sorry, thank you very much. Appreciate the support, and construction will be done in April, and we'll have some programs in there by next fall.
That'd be great. Thank you. All right, anybody else care to comment on the budget discussion?
Where's Gary?
He had to get to Gary County or Junction City.
Gary, Junction City.
So-
Okay, yeah, higher priority.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, going once, going twice. All right, we will close the public hearing on the budget. And commissioners, is there any other discussion, commentary?
Yeah, I want to just, when we started this discussion, the 50 mills was, in my mind, the starting point, because I knew it couldn't go any higher. So I was happy to see it at 50 and not at 52. And our overall goal was to increase the city budget by 6%, and we were doing that basically looking at inflation, because people complain about potholes and the cost of asphalt has not gone down. All right, so we gotta cover that. There are services that people want. You want your roads plowed, we have to pay the snowplow operator a decent salary, or the roads aren't gonna get plowed. So it was necessary to look at the 6%. Now, as I started crunching the numbers, and I spent a week crunching numbers, using my house, vacant lots, and things like that. And what disturbed me was that those appraisals were so far out of whack, went so high that the 6%, it doesn't translate into 6% for most homeowners. And so I think the 50 is too high. And we crunched some other numbers, and it's gonna have to come down to a much lower value, which I know is not gonna make the city staff happy, but I think it's just necessary for us to do that.
Yeah, I agree with when I was looking at the numbers, and as I said, I talked to the county and found out what that residential average was, which was 13%. A lot I heard from people was that, they're getting killed by inflation, and now here comes some more with the amount of property tax that we're gonna have to have. Now, I want to believe that a lot of this inflation is coming because of our friends in the federal government keep printing money, and the more they print money, the more the inflation keeps going up. Now, one of the beneficiaries of printing all that money was the city of Manhattan. With the amount of money that we got for the COVID funds, that's why you see those reserve balances so high up there, was because we got to stuff our coffers with that, which is good because it puts us in a very good financial position. But I believe, giving what all the people are filling out there, we need to give a little bit of that back and take this number down per what, Wynn was talking about. I went and recalculated the numbers, saying what do we need to do to get that, the 13% we took down got us down to about 10%. What would we need to take it down to get close to that 6% number for that residential home? And what I came up with was 49 mills, which, if you use the county's 13.1% increase and run through all the numbers for the residential, would raise it up about 6.26% for a residential home. It gives an overall increase in revenue to the city of about 2.9%, so around 3%. So in my mind, that's what I'm targeting. It gives some break. I mean, people still argue with me over the 6%. But I think it gives some break. I think it's doable. I don't think it all has to come out of reserves. I think we can do something with the budget and get some more efficiencies as well. I know some people will say, well, that's a one-time deal, using one-time money to do tax savings. Well, we got one-time money as well. So I'm saying, yeah, let's use some of that one-time money to give this one-time tax saving. So that's where my head's at right now, is 49 mills.
And that's what the numbers told me, the same thing. That'll give the average person no more than a 6.26% increase, but some will still get more, and some are gonna end up seeing a decrease, and they'll be quite happy. Even with those numbers, mine's still going up much higher than that because of the appraisal, which is frustrating. I guess I should have appealed, and I didn't do so this year. So I think that is what we need to do, but, the overall budget, if you don't count what went into the reserve fund, which was, I think, 21 million, was 16 million. And I guess the staff, you can get a shot at trying to whittle that down and decide where you want to take it. Otherwise, I've got a list of things I do every year that I can provide, which you may not like. But you can get the first shot at it. But I'm with John on the 49 and see if you can wicker it. But it looks to me like the sales taxes will probably cover it this year anyway. And the new economic development fund, part of that is supposed to be offsetting debt. And I think there'll be an increase in that, and I think it should work.
I have a modest home. I appreciate the folks who have big houses and big property tax bills. But I think coming out of COVID, with the federal government recognizing the distress that cities and counties were in And because it's happened over a couple of years, you don't make that association about that dire straits that we were in. We know what our city budget did 2 years ago and how difficult it was for the staff to make it through that period. I'm willing to support the 6% goal that we talked about as a commission. I think that's reasonable. I know that Social Security recipients received an 8% raise in January. I know that the county budget is going to be greater, percentage is greater than ours. These are unusual times when we are having to struggle to recruit and retain quality employees. And we have an ancient computing system here with the city. The AS400 is an antique that we keep bubblegumming and rubber banding. We've got to replace it. And it will then affect all of the services, so many of the services, from dog licenses to all of the customer service type things. And our finance people will have a normal life instead of green eye shade kinds of work. There's progress we have to make. You know that the effort we have put into the roads here in this community, the effort we've put into the recreation programs. 2 years ago, we were really struggling and bumping bottom practically financially. So as we struggle to make it through COVID, and we're in a much better position right now, and I'm not interested in hobbling and cutting back to the point that we find ourselves in the no growth position we did several years ago, because we have had some huge projects: the airport, the levee, the North Campus corridor. Thank you, God, we're through with that.
Almost.
Almost through with that. Last project. I will be gone, but we will have completed phase 11 of the North Campus corridor. That has been a major, if we'd had the money from that, we could have been doing a lot of other things. And so I'm glad to have it over. I'm glad that our community as a whole is benefiting from that. The university is a huge economic engine here in this community, as is Fort Riley. There are no bigger ones than the two of them. And we, whether it's MATC or NBAF or Scorpius eventually, these are projects that will cause our community to grow and our people to have good jobs here. And there are communities in this state that are not as well off as we are with jobs and recruiting companies. So I want to be able to continue to give the Chamber of Commerce some economic development money so they can recruit businesses here. I think we are seeing the dividends of that investment in the past. And so I support a 6% increase.
Well, part of the problem is why taxes are so bad in Kansas is we don't have the tourism that like Texas has, or Florida has, or California has, but we don't have the oil and gas that Oklahoma and Texas has. We don't have the tourism with Lake of the Ozarks and Branson that Missouri has. I don't know how Nebraska generates any money up there because nobody goes to visit them. But so the problem is Kansas is a disadvantage. We don't have a lot of those big sales tax, property tax generators from farming is kind of flat, and that's not really going up and increasing stuff. But here locally, part of the problem with the revenue neutral thing is as long as there's going to be cost of living adjustments in the police department, library, and city, there's going to be a need to be a certain increase in wages in order to keep people. So there's going to be some increase in taxation, whether that's property Or if we could generate enough sales tax through nifty things, more home football games, country stampedes, some kind of thing, then maybe the money could come from other people coming to visit us. But in lieu of that, we're kind of stuck with that. And at some point, we ought to have a discussion about what makes Manhattan so expensive. Is it the fact that we have 18 parks or whatever that number is to maintain? Is it because we insist on having sidewalks on the sides of the streets? People will point out that, well, there's no sidewalks in my neighborhood. Well, the decision was made when that development was put in to make it less expensive to live here by putting in slightly narrower streets, not having sidewalks, things like that, which drive up the cost of your home. We've noticed up at, I was out at that ribbon cutting up there off a Wreath on some of that low-income senior housing that was put up in there. Their streets are one way. They put in narrower streets one way in order to keep the price and the cost of that development down. At some point, we may want to consider, okay, how can we make housing cheaper? Well, take some of the subdivision requirements and make them less for certain areas if we're serious about trying to create a housing area that's less expensive. But when it comes back to property taxes, it's like, yeah, they've gone up 20% in 4 years. If you're looking back on the one slide that went back 4 years here, I don't expect anybody to feel sorry for me, but here's, and I don't know how many people are out there like this. Blue Cross Blue Shield gave us a 1% increase for the first time in 5 years. Medicare went down 2%. United Healthcare, Cigna, the city's plan, Aetna, everybody else has had paid the same prices for the last 5 years. No increases. So don't feel sorry for me, but I have not had a wage increase, a net wage increase, for at least 5 years. If I worked for the city, I would have gotten a 2 or 3 or 4% COLA for the last 5 years, and which would be a 20% increase, which would be kind of handy. My wife's company doesn't give out raises on a regular basis. She's made the same amount of money now for 3 years, but she gets to work from home, and so she's not looking for something different because that's the trade-off. And so what does that mean? It means that there's a certain number of people in Manhattan that haven't gotten a raise in a couple of years because their company or their job doesn't allow for those kind of increases like this government employee system, state, everybody tends to get COLA. Well, it's like the real world, not everybody gets a COLA. And so that's why does the government as a whole always get cost of living adjustments and increases every year when there's a certain percentage of the public does not? And so that's where I came into the night figuring we could go down half a mil, maybe a mil. A mil and a half is a little drastic for my comfort level, but I don't know. It's at some point that's still more money than we had last year, and it sucks that we have to prop up the library and the police department a little bit more than what the rest of the city might get. Sales taxes have been good. I don't know what next year holds with potential. Everybody keeps talking about a recession. I don't know. Manhattan has luckily been fairly exempt from that because of our state and federal employers, but that's been proven the last couple of years that it's no guarantee anymore either. Fort Riley could get smaller. K-State has gotten smaller, and so we can't necessarily count on that. So I don't know. I can be talked into a 49 this year. I would like to see the state go to a 5-year appraisal thing. There's no reason to jack everybody's rates every year. You could jump it 15% every 5 years, would still be better than 5 or 7% every year. So that's my initial thinking.
Yes, and I think this 49 is very much possible for a couple of reasons. I think there's two simple ways to make up any deficit that might come there. One is, I know, Jason, you've been working with ATA. You briefed here that we took it out of economic development because, they brought in a lot of grant money last year, which clearly covered the cost, and we came out ahead. That was a plus for the city. So I like the way that's being done. So that means that we got more money in the economic development fund, and some of that we've dedicated anyway to debt reduction. And so we could use more of that to do that. And then the Scorpion project is not going as fast as it was. and it also doesn't appear to be as big as it was initially. So they're not gonna get, of the full 8 million we have set aside. So I think we've got a cushion there that isn't gonna hurt anything, because I do not wanna see, the wages fooled with, because we gotta keep our people. And I also don't wanna see those reserve funds cut, because that's important for the ratings when we do bonds and things like that. So those are steps forward, and of course, the computer system, the green screen's got to go. We can't have that any longer. So there are some critical things, but I don't think this is gonna hurt those. That if we go after it that way, we're okay, and then if you gotta chip away at some other things, then, I'll say again, I'll start with Town and Gown and all those different agencies we give money to that, the average homeowner could care less, and we can whop all those out of there too.
I'm not gonna say anything you haven't heard me say before. Dropping 3 mills is $700,000 per mill. It's gonna be a $2.1 million impact. At the same time, you're not wrong. We've generated more revenue through other streams. Our revenue balances are good. In lean years, we've had much different conversations in this room. We are not in a lean year. But I will remind you all, because I think it is our duty, we will get lean again. We rely on way too many other revenue streams. Capturing growth in your community via your mill levy is a very accepted and widely practiced approach. Cities giving back $2.1 million and lowering their mill levy by 3 is odd. But we are in unique times. I will admit that. And we are not where we were in 2017 through 2021. You can go back and look at those recordings. You're going to hear a lot of different things out of all the city staff's mouths during those times. You're not hearing that tonight. I think you have this opportunity. And I do think it could be short-lived. We'll see. I just don't want you to believe you're going to be able to not rely on this revenue stream. Or we talk about strategies to get rid of the mill levy. There are other ways to generate revenue. And in January at your retreat, I really think we ought to have that conversation. No one is going to tolerate property taxes any more than they do right now in the future. It will be less. That tolerance is dwindling by the day.
And my problem is we're going to decrease how much the city collects in property taxes a little bit, but they're still going to have a 9% increase in property taxes based on the school district's 10 or 11% and the county's 7 or 8% or 7, whatever it ends up being. Just because ours is 3, it's going to save them $50. And in the meantime, $50 times 20,000 taxpayers is our $2 million that we're losing. And so the point is we're kind of cutting ourselves off at the knees, and it's not going to make a spit's bit of difference really hardly on their bill, because it'll, instead of, even if we cut the whole thing out there, we cut down here, it's going to, there we go. So if we drop the 20, we got to pay the 24 and the 48. If we drop the 30, where's our part? Okay, the 100. Yeah, we go. What part of this is this?
On the city, it's the top side. So it's the total of that $72 there.
Okay, so
that will
reduce.
We're going
to cut out to $24. If we cut that to 0,
yep.
Now they're going to pay $196 instead. No one's going to notice that because everything else is going up $296.
We, as I mentioned, are 12% of your tax bill.
Yeah.
We eliminate all mill levies. All. It's a 12% cut in your bill. I mean, 0 property taxes coming to the city to operate at all. It's a 12% cut. If you're spending $9,000 in property taxes, I'm talking about $1,000 difference. And we get $0 in property taxes. Now, we're going to get in your pocket some other way. You're going to pay it daily instead of once a year. Or you're going to have to start paying more for fees or something relative to the services. or we reduce services. I know what the conversation's like to reduce services in this room, multiple years of it, and it is painful. But if that's the direction we want to go, again, January retreat, let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's talking about reducing services.
Nope.
We're not in that position. And when we talk about the 2.1 million, it's not like we're taking 2 million off of what we spent last year.
Correct.
This is just extra money we could have
Yes.
that we're not going to get. And I realize what Mark's saying, because I said it at a previous meeting when we had people there, that if we do it, I could kind of said the same things you were saying, but I also said that doesn't take us off the hook.
No.
Someone needs to set the example, and you can't just be saying, well, ours isn't that much, so it doesn't matter, we can increase anything we want. In fact, I'd rather do a little shaming here and say, you others need to come to the table, because you're the ones really driving up the cost of living in this city. And if we can do it, because a lot of them got a lot of money too, extra that got added to their budget, but they're not talking about that. We are talking about that here at this meeting. And that's why that money gives me the confidence that we can do this. And there's always risk, but I think the risk is minimal, and we're not going to cut services because of it. And I'm pretty hard on this 49 number.
Yeah, I want to go with the 49, but I agree with Jason. You know, we need to take a hard look at that. And I know people say, oh, our sales tax is too high, but the city's only getting a cent out of that. You know, 6.5 is going state of Kansas. So I got some issues with the state. I'd like to see the state drop that sales tax to about 4.5. And then we could raise ours by 1, and then as Jason says, we wouldn't have a mill levy. We could do away with it. Property tax would be eliminated by us having that sales tax. But the state of Kansas takes the lion's share of it, and the city gets the blame. You know, you got a 9.5% sales tax. 6.5 is the state of Kansas.
All right, somebody want to make a motion then?
Not quite sure how to make this one. Is it, we're just saying direction, or are we saying we want to do the first reading of the budget at 49 mills?
That's fine.
Okay, make a motion to pass the budget at 49 mills.
I'll second.
Probably should first reading of the ordinance.
For the first reading of the
First reading of the ordinance.
All right, second.
And I second.
All right. Any other questions, debate, discussion? Going once, twice? You can always change it for next week, right? Next month or next meeting? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You can change it. Either way. So if we hear an outcry of people thinking it's too low, we'll raise it next meeting there, so. Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Morse,
No.
Mayor Hassel,
Yes?
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
motion carries 3-1.
All right, we'll discuss this more in a couple of weeks. All right, on to the general agenda now, which is consider establishing a common consumption area downtown for Third Thursday Street Fair and Makers Market event, and preferably after city commission meetings.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. We've received an application from Downtown Manhattan, Inc. for a special event that would take place in October. It'd be the third Thursday on the 19th. The event would run from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and they're looking to close down Poyntz Avenue between 3rd and 5th Street. This is a very similar event to what they did last year, but legally we have taken a different approach and tried to create a draft ordinance that would mirror the common consumption area laws at the state of Kansas. I know they had their experience last year. From our understanding, it went very well. I think there were some concerns after the event as another application was submitted through ABC, not for downtown, but for another part of town, where there was some clarification and some confusion. A lot of conversations took place between the city and the ABC throughout the prior years. They're kind of a complicated organization. They're represented by a lot of different people. A lot of different interpretations were made. We feel with the CCA approach that we have before you this evening, we are cleaning up and verifying the process they would prefer we follow. You can anticipate, if you all are willing to adopt this evening and on the 19th, we'll come back with a more comprehensive common consumption ordinance for the community. This is event specific. We will draft an ordinance that would be across the community, highlighting and designating areas at which you would allow such an event, and then more than likely a resolution would be brought to you in the future for each event. Now, an entity like DMI could come with, say, multiple events, and you could approve all of those events in a resolution, potentially under the new ordinance structure. I just wanted to give you that highlight. We're not going to do ordinances for every event in this circumstances. We are, but in the future, again, if you're acceptable to what we're doing this evening and the approach, we will bring a common consumption ordinance that will address all areas of the community you'd like to address. I know DMI is in the audience if you have questions about this event, but I'd be happy to answer any questions, as I know legal staff would as well.
Any questions for Jason?
No, I think this made sense to me, and, and I get it, we'll have a more comprehensive ordinance later.
I do appreciate the idea of having the common consumption place-based kind of approach, rather than an ordinance that just opens up Blue Earth Plaza anytime anybody wants to come there. I don't want that kind. I want to consider a caution about having, alcohol in large groups. I never want to be overwhelmed by a crowd like we get on Fake Patty's Day. And I think that's why I'm going to support this proposal, because it has boundaries, and there are folks in the community, DMI or other, are organizing it and doing the planning and working with the city, and RCPD sees the plans, I think. And so I think this is a good way to approach it.
All right, very good. We'll throw this open for any public comment on this common consumption area one-shot deal for October 19th. Does anybody care to ask any questions, comment on it?
Do you want me to say anything? Okay.
Don't muddy the water. All right. Hearing no public comment, is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve first reading of an ordinance establishing a common consumption area for the possession and consumption of alcohol on Poyntz Avenue from 3rd Street to 5th Street on Thursday, October 19th, 2023, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. for a third Thursday street fair and makers market event.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Butler, second by Commissioner Motter to approve the motion. Please call the roll.
Mayor Hazel,
Yep.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Motta,
Yes.
Commissioner Morse.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, second item on the general agenda is to consider purchasing some real estate for future Fire Station 6 in Green Valley area. Jason?
Yes, Commissioners, previously we had brought this item before you when we were in the speculation mode of looking for property. We have identified a piece of property over here off Excel Road that is owned today by MCM, effectively, the Eichmann family. It's a roughly 4-acre site. About a year ago, we did hire an appraisal done by Bill Lansdowne Simmons Company. They came back with a value of just $963,000, roughly $5 per square foot. The purchase price we've negotiated with the property owner is $914,542.20. This would serve, in our estimation, where Fire Station 6 would be constructed. I don't think we are looking to move on any type of design or construction immediately, but the land is starting to receive some interest, and the Eichmanns let us know that. We had worked with them again last year. They were willing to honor the deal, so we're bringing that before you this evening. From an investment standpoint, if the fire station never happens, I think we stand a really good chance of getting our money back. I don't think it's a huge risk for us to go out here in this park and buy this property. What I do think would be detrimental is if we didn't have this opportunity and had a hard time locating a facility or land for a facility that would ease access and really fit where the fire station needs to respond in the Green Valley, Blue Township area. Fire personnel are here. They can answer questions if you have them. They really like the site. Obviously, we think something will develop at some point at the large area to the east here that's been annexed and zoned inside the city of Manhattan. So that process unfolded, and I know you're well aware of that. But again, just in terms of Highway 24, we have parcels inside the city on Highway 24, and our closest fire station is Fire Station 2, roughly here at City Hall. And our response times are not the best. I know you've received a brief from MFD on response times. If we're going to continue to grow east, we are going to need a fire station. So this evening is about buying land. It's really not more than that. Obviously, there's other activities to come in the future that will drive our decisions to potentially build a fire station there, but we'd like to secure the property. We have available funds within our MeadowFab fund, which is a fund that was established back in 95 and again voted on in 98. Those revenues still reside there, so we can use those funds in Pottawatomie County. Our 02 and 12 EcoDevo money cannot be used unless we were to approach the Riley County Commission for that permission, but we can also use the 2023 sales tax as well. We'd advocate using the remainder of a fund that's been around for a long time that I know Finance will be glad to get rid of one more fund they're monitoring and allow us to consolidate the others as we have proposed previously. So looking for direction and feedback on this acquisition. Happy to answer any questions.
Is there anybody paying money back into the MeadowFab fund anymore?
No,
No. Okay.
it's pretty stagnant.
Yeah. All right.
No, I think that, eventually, people are gonna say that that piece of property is not in the city limits right now. But eventually, probably, I would estimate that most of that along 24 is going to be, because it is hooked to city water. And so so I think long-term, we really need to do this to secure the land. And I think it's, financially not a problem with that MetaFab fund, because it had all those restrictions on it. So using that money, it doesn't affect property tax at this point. And so that's the best way to do it. So I'm pleased with what the staff has done on that.
We're not going to race out and annex it and rezone it and everything. There's no reason
Nope.
to.
No, it just, acquiring it, owning it gives us flexibility in the future.
And we can, no matter what the zoning is around it, we can always stick a fire station there because everybody wants a fire station in their neighborhood until the sirens go off.
Yes, yes. I think folks out there would appreciate that service, sooner rather than later. But we've got a lot to study in the next 18 months. We've hired Stan Tech. We'll go through that process. This type of service and infrastructure will easily be identified. We know we've looked at the annexation strategies. We know it makes sense for us to be on either side of 24 financially. Doesn't necessarily pencil out for the residential. But still, our presence here is going to be something not only properties within the city of Manhattan limits can benefit from, but it'll open up opportunities for us to talk about response times nearby as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've already done annexation out there. Of course, Scorpius is the big one, and regardless of what happens there, we own the property and it's annexed into, not own it, but it's annexed into the city. And it's ours, and I think for future investment, even if we don't have the fire station built, the fact that we have the land and it can be built is gonna raise the value out there and increase interest in the area in investing. So I think it's just a win-win all the way around.
I have a couple of questions. So there is a traffic light scheduled for Highway 24 and XL Road, is that true?
I believe the data today would support one. There's not
eventually. I don't mean
right.
Yeah,
it's
now.
not currently ordered, but I do believe there's a forecast of that in the future.
I
Yep.
think I've heard that somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, so Commissioner, the intersection meets warrants for a signal
Okay.
right now, even without Scorpius.
Okay.
And so we've actually communicated with Pottawatomie
Pottawatomie
County.
County.
They would take the lead in
Okay.
that application. We've had
Excellent.
I know Rob and his folks have had some visits with KDOT about the grant funding application, so I know they've been talking about moving forward with that. So those discussions are occurring.
So would we move to annex the fire station property? And
Not until other
Until we need
dominoes
it.
fall.
well, I know about the dominoes, but my question is more about contiguous. So right now, Scorpius site is an island annexation. Is this fire station across the street? Would it be an island?
It
or
would.
is it
Currently.
considered contiguous because it's across the street?
No.
No, okay. I'm going to support this because I, certainly with a budget cut like you've just voted, there's a need to have revenue to support this. But I think the Metafab funds were originally designed to be for economic development and not an infrastructure, a substitute infrastructure for the city utility-wise. So, but having said that, I am going to support this because it is only way to get it done, I guess. So, thank you.
Just for FYI, I did go back and check both the 95 and 98 questions. They're broadly written for the commission to interpret. We've had the discussion of what is economic development in this chamber before. Each commission, to a degree, gets to look at that definition every time it uses those funds. So that's about as much history and input as I'll get you on that topic right now, because it can go a lot of different directions.
I remember the Metafab vote that we had here. And so I think the community, I don't need to go into this.
Sure.
But I appreciate, I just wanted a marker here that this is probably.
Commissioners, I would just suggest that we wouldn't be even talking about this land or this fire station if we didn't have the Scorpion deal on the table. Because that's what's triggering, and that is very much economic development. So you're not gonna get an economic development client there without the fire station to go with it. So I think the age is very much economic development.
And the sewer and all of the things, the roads and all the things we need to extend the city that far. I appreciate the discussion, thank you.
Yeah, I agree, Ron. It's Scorpion's not gonna happen because we promised them a fire station. So that's economic development, great use of Metafab funds.
All right, let's throw this open for public comment. If anybody would like to comment on this purchase of this terrifically expensive land, which is less than the appraisal value, though. Peter? Nope. All right, I close public comment. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that we authorize city administration to finalize and the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement for purchase of real estate at 3830 XL Road and finalize and execute all documents relative to the closing of the property.
Is there a second?
Second?
Been moved by Commissioner Butler, second by Commissioner Motta again, to pass the motion. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Motta?
Yes.
Commissioner Morse?
Yes.
Mayor Hassel?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, that's all, folks. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the September 5th, 2023 City Commission meeting.
Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded to adjourn. Please call the roll again.
Commissioner Motta?
Yes.
Commissioner Morse?
Yes.
Mayor Hassel?
Yep.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Very good. Meeting adjourned. Thanks for your time.